Race to Win, a sailing podcast brought to you by racecues.com. We review 3D regatta replays and analyze racing tactics, rules, and winning strategies. My name's Jakin, and this is the third in a series of podcasts about upwind race geometry. I've selected two boats, Delta in green on the left and Alpha in red on the right. And this is from a one design race in Scotland, but the boat names and the date have been changed. Now you can see that Delta has continued on the starboard tack, whereas Alpha has tacked to the port tack after they both got a pretty even start. In previous podcasts, I've discussed how the ladder rungs, which are imaginary lines perpendicular to the wind, are a good way of measuring how much windward progress a boat has made on any given windward leg. You can see here that Delta is 71 meters farther up the ladder rungs than Alpha. I've also discussed how going out too wide from the center of the course is inherently riskier than staying near the center because it builds leverage relative to the rest of the boats in the fleet and puts you at a bigger risk of gaining or losing from shifts in the wind. Okay, I'm going to shift views again and back it up a couple seconds and show you how Delta is now gaining ground on Alpha and has been from the moment that Alpha tacked. That's because Alpha tacked onto the non-favored tack and Delta stayed on the favored tack. I'm going to draw some exaggerated lines on the display to show you what I mean. If the wind goes right of center, each moment spent on the starboard tack will gain more ground up the ladder rungs and towards the windward mark than each moment spent on the port tack. I've exaggerated the lines here to show you what I mean, but it's pretty clear as we watch the separation grow that Delta was on the favored tack, or what's called the lifted tack, and Alpha was on the unfavored tack, or the headed tack. And so Delta made some pretty big gains. Now you can see that the wind has actually gone back to the left, and Delta tacked again, so they're again on the lifted tack, making more ground up the ladder rungs with each moment than Alpha. And Alpha, probably feeling that they were building too much leverage and getting out too wide, is coming back on a header and losing a lot of ground to Delta. If I switch to a top-down view, you'll be able to see the much narrower angles toward the windward mark that Delta is sailing relative to Alpha. And that's how they're gaining so much ground. They're not going much faster than Alpha, they're just sailing less distance. Let me skip forward a little bit here and we'll see how the windward leg ends up for both of them. Okay, so here we are at the end of the leg, and you can see that Delta has extended their lead on Alpha pretty significantly. Now, if I click the little Info tab on the toolbar, it pulls up a large range of data for the leg you're viewing. So you can see at the top it says Leg 1 Upwind. And this display will display for whatever boat or boats you're currently focused on. It displays the distance sailed on that leg, the max speed, the average speed, the number of tacks, and most importantly, the total time for that leg. Delta was sailing a little bit faster than Alpha, 3%, but most crucially, they were sailing 11% less distance, which is what allowed them to complete the windward leg a full minute and 30 seconds faster than Alpha. Now, this is the important exception to the rule I've talked about in previous podcasts. Any course on the upwind leg that's within the ley lines is only an equal amount of distance if the wind holds steady. Of course, the wind never holds steady, it always oscillates to some degree. Therefore, it's very important to tack on the headers and always sail the lifts in order to sail less distance than your competitors. That's it for this week's edition of Race to Win. Next time you head out sailing, download Race Cues and check your tacks and see if you're staying on the lifted tack throughout your upwind leg. Thanks for tuning in. Leave us a review on iTunes and check out our website at racecues.com/podcast.